The Volani scout ship moved slowly through the darkness of space. It was a small ship, built for trade and travel, not for war. The ship was called Whisper of Dawn, and it carried only 2 passengers, an old merchant named Tovik and his young niece Yuna. Yuna pressed her face against the cold glass of the observation window. She was small, even for her species. Her skin was pale blue, smooth like water. 2 thin antennae rose from her forehead, and they trembled as she looked outside. What she saw made her heart hurt. Broken ships floated everywhere. Metal twisted into strange shapes. Glass scattered like stars. And bodies. So many bodies, floating in the endless black. Human colony transport, Tovik said from the pilot's seat. His voice was heavy with sadness. They were trying to reach the outer settlements. The Krethen found them first. Yuna knew about the Krethen. Everyone in this part of space knew about them. They were insect creatures, tall and covered in hard shell armor. They had been raiding ships and taking slaves for hundreds of years. The Volani were peaceful traders. They had no weapons, no soldiers. When the Krethen came, they could only run or hide. Why do they do this? Yuna asked quietly. Why do they hurt people? Tovik did not answer. There was no good answer. The old merchant turned the ship slowly, scanning for any sign of life. The Volani always stopped at battle sites. They hoped to find survivors. They rarely did, but they always hoped. It was their way. No life signs, Tovik announced after several minutes. The raiders were thorough. We should leave before. Wait. Yuna's antennae stood straight up. She pointed at one of the broken ships. I saw something move. In that cargo ship. Something moved inside. Tovik looked where she pointed. The ship was badly damaged. Half of it was missing. Burn marks covered what remained. Nothing could survive in there. Yuna, there is nothing. I saw it, Uncle. Please, we have to check. Tovik was tired. He wanted to leave this place of death. But he looked at his niece's face and saw something he could not refuse. Hope. Pure, simple hope. Very well, he sighed. But stay close to me. They docked with the broken ship. The connection was not perfect, and cold air rushed in as the doors opened. Yuna wrapped her thin arms around herself. Humans liked cold temperatures, she knew, but this was too cold even for them. The inside of the ship was dark. Emergency lights flickered red, on and off, on and off. The floor was covered with frost. And bodies. Yuna had never seen dead humans before. They looked strange in death. Their soft skin had turned gray and blue. Their eyes were open but saw nothing. Many of them held weapons in their frozen hands. They had died fighting. Brave creatures, Tovik whispered. Foolish, but brave. They actually tried to fight the Krethen. They walked deeper into the ship. Every room held more bodies. Men, women, even children. The Krethen had shown no mercy. Then Yuna saw him. He sat against the far wall of the cargo hold. A human male, not young but not old. His hair was black, cut short. His clothes were torn and soaked with frozen blood. His chest. Yuna looked away quickly. His chest was ruined. Deep cuts crossed his body. She could see things that should be inside, not outside. Frost covered his face. His lips were blue, almost purple. His eyes were closed. He was clearly dead. More dead than any of the others. Whatever had happened to him, it had been terrible. Yuna felt tears form in her large eyes. She did not know this human. She would never know his name, his story, his dreams. But she felt sad for him. He had died alone, in the cold, far from his home. The Volani had a tradition. When they found the dead, they would close the eyes of the fallen. It was a small kindness, a way of saying, "Rest now. Your fight is over." Yuna knelt beside the dead human. She reached out with her small blue fingers. They trembled as they touched his cold face. She started to close his eyes. The eyes opened. Yuna screamed and fell backward. Her heart pounded so hard, she thought they would burst. The human was looking at her. His eyes were dark brown, almost black, and they held something she could not understand. Pain, yes, but something else too. Something that burned like fire even in this frozen place. "You're still breathing?" she whispered. The words came out before she could stop them. The human did not answer. His eyes moved past her, looking at something behind her. And then, slowly, his cracked and bloody lips pulled back. He smiled. It was not a nice smile. It was the smile of something dangerous. Something that should be dead but refused to die. Behind Yuna, her uncle Tovik screamed. She spun around, her antennae flat with terror. 3 Crethan soldiers stood at the entrance to the cargo hold. They were huge, twice as tall as Tovik. Their bodies were covered in dark red shell armor. Their heads were like insects, with large black eyes and sharp mandibles that clicked together hungrily. They had followed the Vellani ship. They had been waiting. "Wow, wow," the largest Crethan said. Its voice was harsh, like metal scraping metal. "More prey. The Vellani will sell for a good price. Young ones especially." Tovik moved in front of Yuna. His whole body was shaking with fear, but he stood firm. "Please," he begged. "She is just a child. Take me, but let her go." The Crethan laughed. It was an ugly sound. "We will take both. And we will take our time with you, old one. You led us on long chase." Yuna closed her eyes. This was the end. She would become a slave, or worse. Her uncle would die. There was no hope. Then she heard it. Laughter. But not Crethan laughter. Something else. Something human. She opened her eyes and turned. The dead man was laughing. It was a wet, broken sound. Blood bubbled at his lips. But he was laughing as if he had heard the funniest joke in the universe. Slowly, impossibly, he stood up. It should not have been possible. Yuna could see his wounds. She could see bone. She could see organs that should never see light. No creature could stand with those injuries. No creature could even be alive. But the human stood. He picked up a long piece of broken metal from the floor. His movements were slow but steady. He faced the 3 Crethan soldiers. "You want them?" His voice was like gravel, rough and broken. "Come take them." The lead Crethan tilted its head. In all its years of hunting, it had never seen anything like this. Wounded prey begged. Wounded prey cried. Wounded prey did not stand up and challenge hunters. "What are you?" the Crethan demanded. The human smiled again. That terrible bloody smile. "I'm still breathing," he said. "That's all you need to know." Then he attacked. Yuna did not see everything that happened next. It was too fast, too violent. She saw the human move like water, like wind, like nothing she had ever seen. She heard the Crethan scream, actually scream, in fear and pain. She heard shells crack. She heard bodies fall. When it was over, the human stood alone. 3 Crethan warriors lay broken at his feet. Their shells were shattered. Their black eyes stared at nothing. The human turned to look at Yuna. Blood ran down his face like tears. His body swayed. He should fall. He should die. But he did not. "Are you hurt?" he asked before Yuna could answer. His eyes rolled back. He collapsed to the floor and did not move again. But his chest rose and fell. Rose and fell. Still breathing. Tovik had been a trader for 60 years. He had seen many strange things in the dark spaces between stars. He had met hundreds of different species. He had survived pirate attacks, solar storms, and the great plague of the Outer Rim, but he had never seen anything like this human. The man lay on the medical table in the whisper of dawn. Machines beeped and hummed around him. Tubes ran into his arms, carrying medicine and blood substitute. His chest rose and fell in a steady rhythm. He should be dead. Every scan, every reading, every piece of medical knowledge said the same thing. This human should be dead. I do not understand, Tovik muttered for the 100th time. He stared at the screen showing the human's injuries. His lung was pierced. His liver was cut in 3 places. He lost enough blood to fill a small pool. His body temperature dropped below survival level. He looked at Yuna, who sat in a small chair beside the medical table. She had not moved for hours. How is he alive? Tovik asked. How did he fight? How did he stand? Yuna did not answer. She just watched the human breathe. In and out. In and out. Like a machine that would not stop. The Villani were not fighters. They were small, weak, and peaceful. Their bones were light, made for a low-gravity world. Their muscles were thin. In all their history, they had never won a war. They survived by being useful, by trading, by being too unimportant to destroy. Humans were different. Yuna had learned about them in school. They came from a harsh world called Earth, a world with heavy gravity, extreme temperatures, and countless predators. Humans had evolved to survive the impossible, but this was beyond survival. This was something else entirely. 3 days passed. Yuna barely slept. She ate only when her uncle forced her. She stayed beside the human, watching, waiting. She told herself it was because he had saved her life. But the truth was simpler than that. She was curious. What kind of creature could do what he had done? What kind of mind could push a broken body beyond all limits? She needed to know. On the 3rd day, the human opened his eyes. He did not move at first. He just lay there, staring at the ceiling. His dark eyes were clouded with pain, but they were aware. Thinking, understanding. Water, he said. His voice was barely a whisper. Yuna jumped up and grabbed the container of water. Her hand shook as she helped him drink. He swallowed slowly, painfully. Some water ran down his chin. Thank you, he said when he finished. Yuna sat back down. She did not know what to say. What do you say to someone who came back from death? What is your name? She finally asked. The human was quiet for a long moment. His eyes looked far away, seeing something that was not in this room. Doan, he said at last. My name is Doan. I am Yuna. The old Villani is my uncle, Tovik. You saved our lives. Doan turned his head slowly to look at her. Even that small movement seemed to cause him great pain. You were going to close my eyes, he said. I felt your fingers on my face. You thought I was dead. Yuna's antennae twitched with embarrassment. I am sorry. I thought it. Do not be sorry. A ghost of a smile crossed his damaged face. It was a kind thing. The Crethan would have left me to rot. You stopped to show respect to the dead. Silence fell between them. Yuna gathered her courage. How are you alive? She asked. My uncle says your wounds should have killed you many times over. How did you survive? How did you fight? Dalham closed his eyes. For a moment, Yuna thought he had fallen asleep. But then he spoke, his voice slow and tired. Do you know what makes humans different from other species? Yuna shook her head, then remembered his eyes were closed. No, she said. We are weak. Dalham opened his eyes and stared at the ceiling. Compared to most species, humans are soft. Our skin tears easily. Our bones break. We cannot see in the dark or hear sounds from far away. We have no claws, no armor, no venom. He paused, breathing carefully around his damaged lung. But we have something else. Something that should not exist. Something that makes no sense. What is it? Yuna leaned forward. We refuse to die. Dohan turned to look at her again. Even when our bodies have given up, even when every part of us is broken, something inside keeps fighting. It is not strength. It is not skill. It is stubbornness. Pure, stupid stubbornness. He laughed, then coughed. Blood appeared at the corner of his mouth. On Earth, there are stories, he continued when the coughing stopped. A mother whose child was trapped under a vehicle. She lifted something that should have been impossible to lift because her child needed her. A soldier who was shot through the heart but kept fighting for another hour because his friends needed protection. A man who walked through frozen wilderness for 30 days with no food because his family was waiting. Yuna's eyes were wide. These stories are true. Some of them. Maybe all of them. Humans have a talent for doing impossible things when we have something to fight for. What were you fighting for? Yuna asked quietly. On that ship, when you stood up. What made you keep going? Dawn was silent for a long time. When he finally spoke, his voice was different. Softer. Sadder. I had a wife, he said. Her name was Mira. She had the most beautiful laugh. It sounded like music. Yuna stayed very still. She could feel the weight of his words. I had a daughter too. Bomi. She was 8 years old. She liked to draw pictures of alien worlds she wanted to visit someday. Dahan's hands, wrapped in bandages, slowly closed into fists. They were on that ship. The Krethin came without warning. We fought. Everyone fought. But there were too many of them. They killed anyone who resisted. They took the rest as slaves. Tears ran down his face, cutting lines through the dried blood. I watched them die. Myra and Bomi. I could not save them. I was too slow, too weak. The Krethin left me for dead. They thought I was finished. He turned to look at Yuna. His dark eyes burned with something that made her want to look away. When I saw you, I saw my daughter. Same size, same fear in her eyes, same helplessness. Yuna felt her own tears falling. She did not try to stop them. I could not save Bomi, Dohan said, but I could save you. So I stood up. My body said no. My wounds said no. Everything said no. But I stood up anyway. Because of me? Yuna whispered. Because of her. Dohan closed his eyes. She's gone. But she is also the reason I am still breathing. I carry her with me. And as long as I carry her, I cannot stop. I will not stop. Yuna reached out and took his bandaged hand. It was warm, alive. I am sorry, she said. I am so sorry for your loss. Dohan squeezed her hand gently. Do not be sorry, little one. Be grateful. Be grateful for every breath. Because breath is a gift, and we never know when it will be taken away. They sat together in silence. The machines beeped. The ship hummed. And somewhere in the darkness of space, a broken man kept breathing. Not because his body could, but because his heart refused to stop. 2 weeks passed aboard the Whisper of Dawn. Dohan grew stronger each day, though the word stronger was perhaps too generous. He could sit up now. He could eat solid food. He could walk a few steps before the pain forced him to stop. But his wounds did not heal like normal wounds. The Villani medical machines worked hard, pumping medicine into his blood, sealing cuts, fighting infection. Yet the damage was too deep. The scars would never fully fade. The pain would never fully leave. Tovik said it was a miracle he was alive at all. Dahan just smiled that strange, sad smile and said nothing. Yuna spent most of her time with him. She brought him food. She helped him walk. She asked questions, endless questions, about humans and Earth and everything in between. Dohan answered patiently. He told her about blue skies and green forests. He described oceans so vast you could not see the other side. He explained rain and snow and the feeling of warm sunlight on bare skin. "It sounds beautiful," Yuna said one evening as they sat in the small observation room. Stars drifted past the window like slow-moving fireflies. It was. Doan's voice was distant. "I have not seen Earth in 20 years. Humans spread across the galaxy so quickly. We are restless creatures, always moving, always searching." Searching for what? Dawn thought about this. "I do not know. Something new. Something better. Or maybe just something different. Humans hate standing still." Yuna's antennae curled with curiosity. "Is that why you joined the colony transport? To find something new?" "No." Dahan's jaw tightened. "I joined because Mira wanted to see the outer systems. She said the stars were different out there, brighter. She wanted to show Bomi." Silence fell between them. Yuna had learned not to push when Dohan spoke of his family. The wounds in his heart were deeper than the wounds in his body. "Tell me about the Crethin," Dohan said suddenly. "I want to know everything about them." Yuna blinked in surprise. "Why?" "Because they killed my family." His voice was calm, but his eyes were not. "Because they are still out there, taking other families." "Because I am going to stop them." Yuna stared at him. "Stop them? You are one human. There are millions of Crethin. They have warships and armies and—" "I know." Dohan cut her off gently. "I am not stupid. I know I cannot fight them alone. But I can learn, I can plan, and I can find others who have lost what I have lost." Tovik, who had been listening from the doorway, stepped into the room. His old face was worried. "This is foolish talk," the merchant said. "The Crethin have ruled this sector for 300 years. No one has ever stood against them successfully. The Velani tried once, long ago. We lost everything. What happened?" Doan asked. Tovik sat down heavily. His antennae drooped with old grief. "It was before I was born. My grandfather told me the story. The Velani had a homeworld once. A beautiful planet with purple oceans and crystal mountains. The Crethin came and demanded tribute, slaves and resources." He paused, gathering himself. "Our leaders refused. They said we would rather die than serve such monsters. So the Crethin burned our world. They destroyed everything. Cities, forests, oceans, everything. The survivors scattered across space, homeless forever." Yuna had heard this story before, but it still made her heart ache. She had never seen her ancestral home. No living Velani had. It existed only in old recordings and older memories. "That is terrible," Doan said quietly. "I am sorry for your people's loss. Thank you." Tovik looked at the human with something like respect. "But do you understand now? The Crethin cannot be defeated. They are too strong, too many, too cruel. Fighting them only brings more death." Dohan was quiet for a long moment. He stared out the window at the endless stars. "On Earth," he said finally, "there was once a great empire. The most powerful force the world had ever seen. They had armies that stretched across continents. They had weapons that no one could match. They ruled for hundreds of years and believed they would rule forever." He turned to face Tovik. "Do you know what happened to them?" Tovik shook his head. "They fell." Dahan's voice was soft but certain. "Not in one battle, not in one day, but slowly, piece by piece, they fell. Because they made enemies everywhere they went. And eventually, those enemies found each other. They shared their anger, their grief, their hunger for justice. And together, they tore that empire apart." He leaned forward, ignoring the pain that flashed across his face. "The Crethin have been making enemies for 300 years. Think of how many species they have hurt. How many families they have destroyed. How many people are out there right now, feeling exactly what I feel." Yuna felt something stir in her chest. Something she had never felt before. It took her a moment to recognize it. Hope. "You think they will fight, she asked. I think they are waiting. Do-hun smiled, and for once it was not a sad smile. Waiting for someone to show them it is possible. Waiting for someone to stand up first. And you will be that someone? Tovik asked. His voice was skeptical, but his eyes were curious. I do not know. Do-hun looked down at his bandaged hands. I am just one broken human. But I know this. I cannot let my daughter's death mean nothing. I cannot let the Krethen keep taking families while I hide in the darkness. He stood up slowly, painfully. Yuna moved to help him, but he waved her away gently. I will not ask you to fight, he said to Tovik. You have done enough by saving my life. But if you hear of others like me, others who have lost everything to the Krethen, tell them my name. Tell them there is a human who refuses to stop breathing. Tell them they are not alone. Tovik was silent for a long time. His antennae moved in patterns that Yuna recognized as deep thought. There is a station, he said finally, at the edge of this sector. Traders, refugees, people with nowhere else to go. Many of them have stories like yours. Do-hun's eyes brightened. Will you take me there? Tovik sighed. He looked at Yuna, who was watching him with wide, hopeful eyes. He looked at the human, who was barely standing but burning with purpose. I will take you, he said. But I warn you, hope is dangerous in this part of space. The Krethen crush hope wherever they find it. Do-hun nodded slowly. Then we will have to be careful where we plant it. He walked toward the door, each step a small victory over his broken body. At the entrance, he paused and looked back. Thank you, Tovik, for everything. The old merchant just shook his head. Do not thank me yet. Thank me when you are still alive in a year. Do-hun laughed. It was a real laugh, warm and genuine. I will hold you to that, he said. Then he walked out, leaving Yuna and Tovik alone with the stars. Yuna looked at her uncle. Do you think he can do it? Do you think he can really fight the Krethen? Tovik was quiet for a moment. Then he spoke, his voice filled with wonder. I do not know if he can win. But I watched him stand up with wounds that should have killed him. I watched him fight 3 warriors while his body was dying. If anyone can do the impossible. He looked at the door where Do-hun had disappeared. It is him. The Krethen brood queen sat on her throne of bones. Her body was massive, 3 times larger than her soldiers. Her shell was black as space, decorated with the skulls of her enemies. Her eyes, all 6 of them, glowed red in the dim light of her throne room. Before her knelt a messenger, trembling with fear. Say that again, the queen commanded. Her voice echoed through the chamber like thunder. The hunting party is dead, my queen. The messenger pressed his head against the floor. All 3 soldiers. Killed in the debris field of the human transport. Killed by what? Another ship? Weapons fire? No, my queen. The messenger's voice shook. Killed by 1 human. A wounded human who should have been dead. Silence filled the throne room. The queen's mandibles clicked slowly, a sound that made everyone present want to run. 1 human, she repeated. 1 wounded human killed 3 of my soldiers. Yes, my queen, the wounds on our warriors. They were torn apart by hand. No weapons. Just hands. The queen rose from her throne. The bones beneath her cracked and shifted. She walked toward the messenger, each step making the floor tremble. Find this human, she said. Bring him to me. Alive if possible. Dead if necessary. But bring him. The messenger bowed lower. It will be done, my queen. Send Chirac. The queen's voice softened slightly. Chirac was her son, her finest warrior. If this human is special enough to kill 3 soldiers, he deserves special attention. The messenger fled to deliver the orders. The queen returned to her throne and stared into the darkness. 1 human. 1 wounded, broken human. For the first time in 300 years, She felt something she had almost forgotten. Curiosity. Chirac was everything a Crethan prince should be. He was tall, powerful, and cruel. His shell was deep red, the color of royal blood. He had conquered 20 worlds and taken 10,000 slaves. He feared nothing in the universe. Until now. He stood in the cargo hold of the human transport, staring at the bodies of his warriors. They had been torn apart like paper. Their shells, harder than steel, had been cracked open. Their limbs lay scattered across the frozen floor. One human did this? Chirac asked his second in command, a scarred veteran named Crix. So the evidence says, my prince. Crix's voice was careful. The Villani ship that rescued him left sensor traces. We tracked it to a small trade station at the sector's edge. Chirac knelt beside one of the bodies. He examined the wounds with expert eyes. The damage was not precise. It was not skilled. It was something else. Savage, desperate, unstoppable. This human was dying when he fought, Chirac said slowly. Look at the blood trail. He should not have been able to stand, much less fight. Humans are strange creatures, Crix said. They do not know when to die. No. Chirac stood up, his red eyes gleaming. They know. They simply refuse. He turned and walked toward his ship. 30 of his finest warriors waited for him. They were eager for blood, for glory, for the hunt. We leave immediately, Chirac announced. Find this human. Find the Villani who helped him. Show them what happens to those who kill Crethan warriors. The soldiers cheered. Their mandibles clicked together in a sound, like breaking bones. The hunt had begun. The trade station was called Haven's End. It was an ugly place, built from old ships and salvaged metal. It hung in space like a forgotten dream, home to those who had nowhere else to go. Dawn had been there for 3 months. In that time, he had changed. Not physically. His wounds still ached. His body was still broken. He would never be the man he was before, but inside, something new had grown. He spent his days talking to the refugees who filled the station. He listened to their stories. A Makari trader whose family was taken by Crethan slavers. A Tauran engineer whose homeworld was burned for refusing to pay tribute. A human woman named Somi whose ship was destroyed in a raid, leaving her alone in the universe. So many stories. So much pain. So much anger. They have been hurting people for centuries, Dohon told the small group gathered in a hidden storage room. There were 12 of them now from 6 different species. They believe they cannot be stopped. They believe we are too weak, too scattered, too afraid. He looked around the room, meeting each pair of eyes. Are they right? No one spoke. Fear was heavy in the air. These were survivors, not soldiers. They had spent their lives running and hiding. Then Somi stepped forward. She was small, even for a human woman. Her hair was gray before its time, and her eyes held shadows that would never leave. My husband fought the Crethan, she said. Her voice was quiet but steady. He was not a soldier. He was a cook. But when they boarded our ship, he grabbed a knife and stood between them and our passengers. She paused, remembering. He killed 2 of them before they brought him down. 2 Crethan warriors, killed by a cook with a kitchen knife. She looked at Dawn. If he could do that, what could we do together? Slowly, others nodded. The Makari trader. The Tauran engineer. A young Villani with fire in her eyes. One by one, they stepped forward. Dawn smiled. It was the first real smile in a long time. Then let us begin. Yuna watched from the doorway. She was supposed to be helping her uncle with repairs, but she could not stay away. This human, this broken, impossible human, was building something. She did not understand it yet. She was too young, too sheltered. But she felt its importance like heat from a fire. Doan saw her watching. He walked over slowly, careful of his still healing wounds. "You should not be here," he said gently. "This is dangerous work. I want to help." The words came out before she could stop them. Dohan studied her face. Whatever he saw there made him nod slowly. "Your uncle would not approve. My uncle approves of running and hiding." Yuna's antennae stood straight with determination. "I am tired of running. I am tired of being afraid. You showed me that even the broken can fight. Let me learn." For a long moment, Dohan said nothing. Then he placed a hand on her shoulder. "You remind me of her," he said softly. "My daughter. She was stubborn too. Is that bad?" "No." His eyes were warm despite their sadness. "It is the only thing that saves us in the end." He led her into the room. The others looked up, surprised to see a Volani child. "This is Yuna," Dohan announced. "She saved my life. She found me in the darkness when everyone else had given up." He looked at her with something like pride. "She will be one of us. And one day, she will be better than all of us." Yuna felt tears in her eyes. But they were not tears of sadness. They were tears of belonging. For the first time since her people lost their world, a Volani had a home again, and it was in the hearts of those who refused to give up. 6 months after the day, Yuna found Dohan in the wreckage. Everything changed. Chirac found them. The Crethan prince had tracked the Volani ship across the sector. He had followed whispers and rumors. He had tortured informants and burned stations that would not talk. Finally, his patience was rewarded. 30 Crethan warships surrounded Haven's End. Their weapons hummed with deadly energy. Their soldiers waited in boarding pods, eager for blood. Chirac himself stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the pathetic station float before him. "This is Prince Chirac of the Crethan Empire." His voice boomed across all communication channels. "You are harboring a criminal who killed royal soldiers. Surrender him now, and we will only take half of you as slaves. Resist, and we will take everyone." He waited for the usual response. Begging, crying, promises of cooperation. Instead, he got laughter. Human laughter. Prince Chirac. Dohan's voice was calm, almost friendly. "I was wondering when you would find me. You are the human?" Chirac leaned forward. "The one who killed my soldiers?" "I am, and I have to thank you." Chirac's mandibles clicked with confusion. "Thank me. You gave me a purpose." Dawn's voice hardened. "When your raiders killed my family, I wanted to die. But then I saw a little girl who needed help. And then I met others who had lost everything to your kind. People from a dozen different species, all broken by the Crethan." He paused. "You created us, Chirac. Every species you conquered, every family you destroyed, every world you burned. You planted seeds of hatred, and now those seeds have grown." Chirac laughed. "Grown into what? A handful of refugees? Some broken humans and weak Volani? You are nothing. Look again, Prince." Chirac turned to his sensors officer. The soldier was staring at his screen with something like fear. "My prince, ships are emerging from hyperspace. How many?" The officer swallowed hard. 17. No, 20. 24. Chirac spun back to the main window. All around the station, ships were appearing. Small ships, old ships, ships held together with hope and wire. But they were armed. And they were many. "What is this?" Chirac demanded. "This is what happens when monsters forget they are making enemies." Dawn's voice was cold now. "Every ship you see lost someone to the Crethan. Every captain has a family member who was killed or taken. They have been waiting for this moment. Waiting for someone to show them they were not alone." The communication channel crackled with new voices. "This is Captain Bora of the merchant vessel Quiet Thunder. I lost my brother to your slavers. I am here. This is Minho of the Torn Resistance. You burned my homeworld. I am here. This is GA of the Human Survivors Network. You took everything from us. We are here. More voices joined. More ships. More anger that had waited centuries for release. Chirac felt something he had never felt before. His soldiers saw it in his eyes and did not understand. Their prince, the conqueror of 20 worlds, the terror of the outer systems, was afraid. Attack, he ordered. His voice cracked slightly. Destroy them all. The battle was brutal. The Krethen had better ships, better weapons, better training. But the Alliance had something the Krethen had forgotten existed. They had something to fight for. Ships fell on both sides. Fire bloomed in the darkness of space. Escape pods scattered like seeds in wind. But slowly, terribly, the tide turned. Daohun led a small team in a boarding action against Chirac's flagship. Yuna was with him, against every order and every protest. She had trained for 6 months. She had learned to fight, to shoot, to survive. She was no longer the frightened child who could not close a dead man's eyes. They cut through the ship's corridors. Daohun moved like a ghost, his body still broken but his spirit unbreakable. The Krethen soldiers fell before him. Finally, they reached the bridge. Chirac waited for them with his elite guard. 20 soldiers, the best of the best. They stood in a circle around their prince, weapons ready. So you are the human. Chirac stepped forward. He was massive, towering over Daohun like a mountain. The monster who would destroy an empire. Daohun looked at him. His dark eyes held no fear, only exhaustion. I am no monster, he said. I am just a father who lost his daughter. A husband who lost his wife. You made me what I am, Chirac. You made all of us. Then I will unmake you. Chirac raised his blade. Kill him. The elite guards charged. What followed was chaos. Daohun fought with everything he had. Yuna stayed behind him, firing her weapon at any soldier who got too close. The others in their boarding team fell one by one. In the end, only 3 remained. Daohun, Yuna, and Chirac. The prince was wounded. His red shell cracked, his royal blood leaking onto the floor. But he was still standing, still dangerous. You cannot win, Chirac hissed. Even if you kill me, my mother will send armies. She will burn every world that helped you. She will hunt your kind to extinction. Daohun swayed on his feet. His wounds had reopened. Blood soaked through his clothes. But he did not fall. Maybe, he said. Or maybe she will see what happened here today. Maybe she will realize that prey can become predators. Maybe she will wonder how many more like us are waiting in the darkness. He raised his weapon. The Krethen have ruled through fear for 300 years. Today, we teach you what it feels like to be afraid. Chirac lunged. Daohun fired. The prince fell. The news spread across the sector like wildfire. A Krethen prince, son of the Brood Queen herself, killed by a human and his alliance of broken refugees. 24 ships against 30, and the refugees had won. The Brood Queen did not send armies. Not yet. She was old and cunning. She knew that martyrs were more dangerous than enemies. She pulled her fleets back and waited, watching, planning. But for now, the sector was free. Daohun did not live to see the full result of his work. The wounds he carried were too deep, the price of his stubbornness too high. 3 months after the battle, his heart finally gave out. He died peacefully, in his sleep, surrounded by the family he had built. Yuna was there at the end. She held his hand as his breathing slowed. She did not cry, not then. There would be time for tears later. Thank you, she whispered to him, for showing us how to stand. Daohun smiled one last time. That strange, sad, beautiful smile. Take care of them, he whispered back. Teach them what I taught you. What is that? His eyes closed. His chest rose one final time. Never. Stop. Breathing. And then he was gone. Years later, Eunice stood before a gathering of thousands. Species from across the galaxy had come to hear her speak. The Alliance of the Broken, they called themselves. Those who had lost everything and refused to give up. Una was no longer young. Her antennae were gray now, her face lined with wisdom and sorrow. But her eyes still burned with the fire that Dohan had lit. I found him in the wreckage, she told the crowd. A human who should have been dead. His body was destroyed. His family was gone. He had nothing left to live for. She paused, remembering. But when I knelt beside him, when I reached out to close his eyes, he opened them instead. And do you know what I asked him? The crowd was silent. I asked him, "You are still breathing?" Una smiled. It was Dohan's smile, passed down like a torch in the darkness. He spent the rest of his life answering that question. Yes, I am still breathing. Yes, I am still fighting. Yes, I am still here. And now, so are we. She raised her hand, and the crowd raised theirs in return. The Crethan called us prey. They called us weak. They thought we would break and scatter and disappear. But they forgot something important. Her voice rose like thunder. They forgot that the broken can be made whole again. That the weak can find strength in each other. That monsters only have power until their victims stop being afraid. She looked out at the sea of faces. Every species, every color, every story of loss and survival. Dohan taught me that hope is the most dangerous weapon in the universe. The Crethan cannot kill it, cannot capture it, cannot burn it away. As long as one of us remains, hope remains. She placed her hand over her heart. So when they ask you how you survived, when they ask you how you kept going, when they ask you how you found the strength to stand, you tell them the same thing that Broken Human told me all those years ago. Her voice dropped to a whisper that somehow filled the entire chamber. Tell them you are still breathing. And tell them you will never, ever stop. The crowd erupted. Cheers and cries and tears of joy and grief mixed together in a storm of sound. And somewhere, in the place where spirits go when their bodies fail, a human smiled. His daughter was safe now. They all were, and they were still breathing. The end.